Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bump and Run podcast. I'm your host, Matt Chaffe. Joined with me today is Andrew Wisdom from episode 1, and newest member to the Bump and Run podcast is Matt O'Brien, or some of you might know him as Karma MJO from our Nitro League races. This is the week of February 18th, 2019. And the Daytona 500 is in the books for 2019, and well, for some people, it was an unexpected Daytona 500, unless you were myself or Andrew over here, who were like, yes, the Daytona 500 is going to see action. But obviously the question is going to be, why didn't we see this all weekend? Why was the clash? Why were the duels single file and boring as all hell? And, Matt, we'll go ahead and start you off. What are your opinions on that?
So I was on the side that this race was going to be horrible. My expectations, honestly, were I expect nothing good and I'll still be disappointed. But it was a very good race, in my opinion. Why didn't we see this all weekend? I don't know.
I don't think I could find an answer to. The only thing I can think of is that, first off, at the clash, I think, Andrew, you could probably agree with this, I think, after watching the 500, it was kind of unacceptable for the clash to be as boring as it was. I don't know if you can agree or not, and maybe kind of dissect why the clash was not as exciting as what we saw in the 500.
I think it's just the spectacle of the Daytona 500 in general. Like, you have the clash, all they're there for is the paycheck. But when you go to Daytona, everybody wants to be up there. Everybody wants to make a name for themselves. They haven't already. They want to lead laps. They want to command the race. They want to be a part of that. Probably didn't hurt that they got a little bit of a talking to in the drivers' meeting about the lack of passing. I think some of the drivers kind of needed to realize or be reminded that how the fans will react to a race, or how the fans feel about NASCAR as a whole, is how they get paid and make a living for themselves. So, but I think it was probably the drivers' meeting combined with basically just the spectacle of the event and the fact that you're not just waiting till the end to try to get a paycheck. There's a deep emotional kind of attachment to the race for every single driver in the field.
Apparently the Mr. Jim France was there and basically told all the drivers, get off your butts, go do something. And for me personally, I feel that you can't just tell drivers, go make stuff exciting, especially if you're the Fords, who usually have a game plan every plate race that we've seen in the modern Gen 6 era, or at least the past few years. But the Fords always come into Daytona having a plan, and you can't really change their plan on how to race. Obviously the Fords were able to work together, but it could be multiple factors. Could be that. The way I see it is that, yes, the duels are going to... People complain, again, that the clash was boring. And, clash, like we talked about in episode 1, it's hard because we had rain delays, so it's hard for anyone to really race with each other because we had all these rain breaks. The duels, however, if that's the car you want to use for the 500, you're not going to put yourself at risk for it. Yes, you want a good starting spot for the 500, but it's a plate race, so you can easily get your way up to the front because positions change all the time, and you have a greater chance at finding your way up to the front at super speedways like Daytona and Talladega than you do at other tracks. So, like I said, me and Andrew called it because you have 40 cars out there on the track, you have so much more speed and momentum, you're going to get more lanes working, and we'll talk about it later with TV ratings, but the racing in general was way better than anyone expected, and it was good. I mean, I was on the edge of my seat. For all these stages, you had so many different strategies. You had the Fords pitting here, you had Chevy and Toyota pitting there, and it was, you're just on the edge of your seat, on who's going to get to the end of this stage, who's going to go lead laps, who's going to get their way up to the front. But speaking of pitting and talking about Toyota and Chevy, or should we call them Toyhevy or Chevyota? Are we seeing two manufacturers working together? Because that was the weirdest 500 ever, to see Toyota and Chevy what seems to be working together. They were strategizing. I mean, what's the deal? Any of you two, like all of a sudden we're here at the 500, and I don't think we'd ever seen anything like that. Obviously the Fords work together because they're one manufacturer, but here you have two separate rival manufacturers working together for the 500. Is that ridiculous?
It's a numbers thing.
That's what it is. It's a numbers thing.
You have Toyota, you have Joe Gibbs, and you have Matt Benedetto. For competitive cars. You have 5. Martin Truex decided that he was going to wait in the pits with the pace car all race. So really, that puts them down to 7. Or sorry, down to 4, not 5. When you use the Fords is where you have 7. You have the 4 SHR cars. You have the 3 Penske cars. In my opinion, is kind of their competitive cars. So you have basically 7 of those cars, and you have Paul Menard. We'll make that 8. So you have basically 8 Fords that can hook up together and be competitive and fast. And then you have Toyota and Chevy, who basically have 4 cars each. And by the time you kind of equal it all out, they were probably just forced to take what they could get.
I think it was planned before the race.
Yeah, my question is how soon before the race? Because obviously
it was definitely before the race.
Yeah, but hours before. I couldn't imagine hours before.
I could imagine the night before.
Yeah. Because apparently people, we know when Ford is getting together because all Ford crew chiefs and top guys in the Ford teams, we hear it. Everyone on social media, everyone in Fox or NBC says Ford guys are together. I really haven't heard too much about Chevy and Toyota guys working with each other. I think there was a rumor around the garage area, but I think that rumor was hard to confirm because it seemed like it was just Gibbs and Hendrick that were really working together. So even though we say Toyota and Chevy working together, it was really only those top 2 teams. And obviously, Andrew mentioned, you got De Benedetto, who's in a Toyota, who could really help them because he's in Gibbs equipment, which really showed throughout the entire race. And then it's interesting that we've seen Ford really work together these past few years, and it took until the 500 of 2019 for 2 groups of manufacturers to try to work together and beat Ford. And that goes to our next question. Did the Fords struggle through the 500? And I think they did. I think all the Fords were really thrown off. Now, yes, they did keep with the game plan. They did work together. But, it was hard for any of the Fords to group up and get to the front. There were a lot of times where I'm looking at this lead and obviously as a Stewart-Haas Racing fan, I'm looking at where Stewart-Haas Racing is up in the lead pack, and they had a hard time grouping up and finding each other because the Toyotas and Chevys were, in the way. They couldn't get to them. And then when the opportunity came, none of the Toyotas or none of the Chevys decided to work with them. It was pretty crazy to watch. And, obviously in the end, as we all know, with Denny Hamlin winning, I think it worked. It definitely worked in this case, it worked for Toyota. Hendrick, they had to get through some of the wrecks, but, they made it to the end. So, yeah, very interesting. Who knows? Who knows when we go to Talladega this season, whether or not Toyota and Ford can work together and try to beat the Fords. But like we mentioned, De Benedetto, man, he led the most laps. Well, the most laps only being 49 of the 200 due to lead changes, because that's what Daytona was like. But De Benedetto lapping the field, that was I think the craziest thing I've ever seen in a Daytona 500, or at least from what I've experienced. And I can't imagine people watching this podcast didn't watch the 500, but basically in stage 2, you had most of the Ford guys and, a handful of other Toyotas and Chevys come to pit road early in stage 2. But the top Hendrick guys and top Gibbs guys, including De Benedetto, stayed out. And they were faster. That group of 6 cars was faster than the train of 20 or so that had pitted earlier in stage 2. And I just want your guys' thoughts on, like, how on earth did that even work? How on earth did a small pack of cars catch up to a larger pack of cars that would, in theory, have more momentum and more speed?
This is when I realized that it was just a simple fact that Chevy and Toyota were just faster. That's all it really comes down to. They were just so much faster for whatever reason. However, the cars were designed at the shop, they were just faster. And after a certain point, like after the game got close enough, the draft just sucks them in.
It was remarkable, just seeing them close in. Like, I'm watching and, I'm thinking, okay, when are these guys gonna pit? And then all of a sudden, like, wait, that's that group of cars that pitted at the beginning of stage 2. Like, they're about to lap them. And Andrew, you could probably, you could probably talk a little bit more, obviously, as being a Hendrick fan. Those Hendrick cars are fast all weekend, so you think that helped out a lot, too?
1000%, yes. Well, I think it's just, I don't know. I want to say that they're just faster. I can agree with that statement. I think that the Chevys and the Fords had the best, at least single car speed, probably. But if you look at, like, I don't really know what's going on with the draft this year. Obviously, air hasn't changed. I don't know if the cars are a little bit different, if they kind of tweaked a few things on the design.
The only thing is it's a wider spoiler just for this race, I think.
Yeah, so that could have helped. But I think it was in the second duel, I guess it was, because it was Alex Bowman and Kyle Larson were just two cars running together at the end of the second duel, and I believe that they were catching the lead pack at the end of the second duel, just running just the two of them, because guys in the, you had guys like Chase Elliott and I think Daniel Suarez was in that duel. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you did at least have a couple guys trying to jump out of line and make moves, like Chase Elliott, Austin Dillon, Ty Dillon, just a couple other guys kind of moving around trying to make something happen. And those two cars, even though it was just the two of them, they just stayed glued together, and they were running faster lap times. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it was the car itself or just the spoiler changing the arrow or what, but it seemed like basically just because it was less cars and there was less shuffling around, it just created a lot more speed.
Yeah, I'm gonna go down the path, and I have to agree though with Matt here, because the other Matt because yeah, those Hendrick cars were crazy fast. I can't say the same for Gibbs, but when you put Gibbs and Hendrick in the same pack, they're gonna go flying, and that's what they did. But yeah, when you're in a larger group like that, there's a lot more letting off. Like when you're the fourth car on back, there's gonna be way more letting off and coasting, and you're not gonna be able to gain this. I mean, yeah, you're gonna have momentum, you're gonna have speed, but it's not gonna be as great as those who, in this case, the 6 cars of Hendrick and Gibbs cars, who I think most of them probably held it flat out, which means, like, yeah, they had way more speed than that other group. So yeah, that was really cool to see. I don't think we'll witness that ever again, because the super speedway package is changing. This is something I didn't know in the last episode, but apparently NASCAR decided to keep the same super speedway package they've been using in the modern, like, Gen 6 era for the past 2 years-ish, I think. And yeah, all they did, I think, was widen the spoiler, and then they're going to go into the 2019 package and use the, like, intermediate package at super speedway. So going to be completely different. That's something I think we'll talk about before we get to Talladega and whatnot. That'll be a bigger topic of discussion. Yeah, I don't think we'll ever see that. I don't think we'll ever see that much of a gain of drivers around the field. Now, yes, obviously it happened because the Ford guys pitted, so they were put in that situation due to strategy, but it was just awe-inspiring to see that take place. Well, another big thing with the Daytona 500, and I'm surprised it didn't really happen until 10 laps to go, but yeah, this guy Paul Menard, who we all praised after the clash, well, I guess people will start hating him again. And yeah, well, he got into Benedetto and caused a pretty big wreck, tore up a lot of race cars. I think we might have reached the Tony Stewart crash car quota, I think, after that wreck. Breaking down the Menard and De Benedetto crash, was it too soon? I mean, it was 10 laps to go, but it was also just after a restart because Brad Keselowski blew a tire, to cause that caution and to restart the race. Was it too hard to race, without even completing a lap after the restart?
No. I believe it's go time, and especially because at that point, that's when Kyle and Denny were leading the race, and at that point, they're not going to make a move until the very end. So the only way to challenge them is pass both of them, in my opinion. So you have to go. It's still another factor in this pack. Another thing with this package is like you can't. I still believe you cannot wait till the last lap, even though the drivers for some reason think.
Yeah,
I don't know why drivers think that.
I mean,
right.
I don't know what else there is to say. When it's time to go, it's time to go. What? You gotta hope that it was just, as we would say in our league races, there might have been a slight miscalculation by Paul Menard going into turn 3, but overall, you kind of have to push the issue, otherwise you're just gonna fall behind. So I don't think it was too hard. I just think that it was a mistake. Some people might argue it was a little bit of karma for the way that Paul Menard handled his interview after the clash, but I don't know.
I'll say Paul Menard and Jimmy are kind of even on total cars wrecked on the week.
1-1. Jimmy's on 1.2 for hitting Kyle Busch and anything else he's maybe done. Yeah, for me it's I understand that you can't wait till the last second. I agree. With 10 to go, it's go time. And yeah, by that part of the track, cars are gaining the most momentum. Obviously, Paul Menard is seeing that bottom line is really pulling away, and the fastest car is in front of him. DiBenedetto led the most laps. He obviously has the car to go out and win the 500, so he's going to do anything he can to push him and get the momentum started. And yeah, it was just. I mean, yeah, I agree too. I don't think it was racing, it was too soon to race hard, but they also just got off of a restart. And I feel like, especially with the high lane having a lot of momentum over the weekend, I feel like Menard maybe could have laid off a little bit more. It sounds ridiculous, but if, you look at the replays, Menard had also a train of cars coming on the high side that also had great momentum. I mean, obviously when that wreck happened, the momentum that sent Almirola into the wall, David Reagan into the wall, other guys up the track, I mean, it was huge. None of these guys could really slow down. So I believe the high lane had momentum that could have carried them through 3 and 4 and had a good shot at racing. DiBenedetto could at least caught up to the leaders, but I mean, yeah, it's 10 laps to go in the 500. You're gonna push hard, and that wreck was huge too. I mean, that was pretty much like the Clash, where it wiped out everyone. I mean, I feel like it's weird because I was listening to the Fox broadcast, and people make it sound as if a wreck like that has never happened. The biggest wreck I can think of happening is when they had that rain delay back in 2014, I believe, for the Cook 0400. They had a pretty big wreck like that. There was also one back in the COT era, I believe, with I don't know, that was the one with Dale Jr. or whatnot, but I mean, we have a wreck like that at the front of the field. It's going to be big, and it was just, I think it was really scary because of the momentum cars were getting. Just a crazy wreck. Obviously, I know I talked about it a bunch. I've seen a lot of people talk about it on YouTube comments, but Almirola's car going up into the wall, or into the air, I should say. First off, he hit the wall a ton head on and then got sent up into the air. It was, a lot of people were like, geez, that looked like his Kansas wreck. But yeah, it's just... And it was scary. He said it himself. Everyone was like, for me, I was like, gosh, I hope he's okay. I mean, he took a head-on lick first. So, head-on licks at Daytona obviously haven't had a good history. But it's, yeah. I mean, that's sadly the product of Daytona. Before we move on, obviously, there were 2 more wrecks after that. You had the Boyer incident and the Stenhouse incident. Actually, which one came first? Do you guys know? Was the Stenhouse came first? Mm-hmm. Okay, so you had the Stenhouse incident. That was just plain old wrecky shithouse kind of moves. I don't know what he was thinking.
That was His brain was not on the on-off switch. It was on the off position.
I didn't know that had another position. To be honest.
I thought, honestly, that was just funny just because it was Stenhouse doing it.
Mm-hmm. It was so comical. I mean, memes, I think, grew, or I hope people create memes off of it. I mean, it was just Stenhouse shooting the gaff. Like, what are you doing? Help someone. Work with someone.
Where's the big car Stenhouse meme?
Mm-hmm.
We have the.
It was just Ricky being Ricky. That's all it was.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. And then the Boyer incident was just, I mean, he thought he was clear. I don't know.
1 second too early.
Yeah.
I'm butthurt about that one, man. Chase got through those first 2 wrecks, had a little bit of damage on the back, but the car was still fine. And Clint was like, oh, let's wreck the field.
Mm-hmm. So now we see, because I don't know where the position of it was, but I'm pretty sure that full moon was placed out of turn 3, and that's where all the big wrecks happened. So
can we talk about Ryan Preece real quick?
Okay, we don't have this on the lineup
for these wrecks.
Yeah, okay.
A true legend.
Those are insane. No, actually, we need. Okay, we'll add this in because this is not in our list. But we need to talk about Eric Jones. Obviously, Matt here knows a lot because he's a fan of that 20. We need to talk about Ryan Preece. First of all, okay, Jones. What the heck did he have to overcome from that race? What happened to him, and how did he make it to the end?
When the JGR train happened, when he was third in line, he had a heel pickup problem. So he's like 2 laps down when Kyle Larson saves the race when there's the freight train starting on the high side. So Kyle Larson saved the race. But Jones was 2 laps down at that point, and somehow miraculously, even though he was in the first big one, he somehow came from 2 laps in like the last 20 laps and still finished third.
I mean, I laughed.
And like,
recruited on what? Yeah, go on.
What do we call the trunk? Like the thing they open.
The trunk.
Yeah, but is there like a special name for it?
I call it the trunk.
Trunk lid.
Yeah, like the trunk. Yeah, the trunk lid.
The deck lid.
Deck lid. Yeah, we got.
Yeah. In the big one, it fell off. Like the entire thing came off. Yeah, I was like, we're just gonna tape.
When it happened, I tagged Carl, and I was like, all he's gotta do is tape the trunk back on. He's fine.
It's good enough for a 3rd place finish, you know.
Yeah, because he wasn't the only one, too. Like, Johnson also had quarter panel issues as well and had a hanging fuel tank line.
Have you seen Larson's car?
And his was torn out, too.
He finished 7th. He finished 7th, and he was, like, in the last 3 cautions.
And I think the craziest story out of all of these wrecks, though, like I said, I mean, you had Johnson, who got ran into by a bunch of guys who don't know how to race, coming down pit road, tore up his left rear quarter panel, which is where they fuel the car, and cleaned it right out. And Johnson they were able to repair it somehow. Johnson, did he finish top 10? Or something crazy at the end. I don't know where he finished.
He finished 9th.
Okay, he finished 9th. But yeah, I think the biggest one is Ryan Preece. I'm pretty sure there's not one scratch on that car. I mean, obviously I think they all took the cars to the junkyard now. But no matter what, he made it through a lot of these wrecks. And for his first ever, I was asked this.
It's not his first. It was not.
It was not his first? Because you were asking me this during the 500, and we were like, is this his first race? I thought it's his first debut race in Cup.
I thought it was his first race.
He actually did 5 races in 2015.
And we didn't hear about it. Wow, I've never heard about it.
I hope Alex Bowman.
It was for Premium Motorsports, so
you wouldn't hear about it. Yeah, but definitely, Preece was in that. I mean, I guess his debut in the 500. He's never been to I mean, even if he has been into a plate race, he hasn't been in contention up there for the lead. So
Has been in the plate race.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, big credit to him for avoiding it. Yeah, it takes a lot of luck, but it does take driver's skill too.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say the 47 team made a good change.
Yeah.
Over the off season, AJ Allmendinger is a tremendously talented driver, but sports car racing is definitely his forte in comparison to stock cars.
And you have Ryan Preece, who has the same background as Joey Logano because they wound up racing each other back when they were little and growing up. And I feel like Ryan Preece is kind of a similar driving style to Joey Logano, or at least has that same skill level. So yeah, that's definitely someone to watch out for this season. Especially with the new package. But yeah, continuing on, because I'm pretty sure we're getting close to halfway here in this podcast. We still have to talk about, though, JGR's storybook finish for the 500. And I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a fan of... Obviously, if you're a fan of Toyota, you're probably happy for Hamlin. Or if you are a Hamlin fan, you're happy. But I don't care if you're a Chevy fan or a Ford fan. Whether you hate Denny Hamlin or not, that was the coolest win I have ever witnessed, being alive and watching the modern era of NASCAR. That was the coolest story ever, to have the remembrance of J.D. Gibbs and to have the 11 team go out and win the 500. I don't even know where to go with this, because it was such a... It's so awe-inspiring. It's so cool to witness that happen, and I don't think it was luck either. I feel like the Gibbs cars came with really, like we mentioned with DiBenedetto and those 6 cars of Hendrick and Gibbs cars, lapping the field. Those Gibbs cars came prepared. And they definitely earned that 500 win no matter what. They were out there in the front.
Let me make one statement.
The wrecks. Yeah, go on.
Let me make one statement. I want to make sure everybody takes a deep breath and everybody is sitting down. The reason the ending to that Daytona 500 happened is because Kyle Busch actually took one for the team.
Did you see him?
I'm going to lose my balance just sitting down.
I did not see him.
Joe Gibbs goes up to hug Kyle after the race, and he looks so dejected.
I mean, Kyle is... He's been so close so many times.
Now, I watched
What do you think about his plate career
this evening, the night that we're recording this, and because there's even Denny Hamlin question is, is Kyle really going to do the teammate thing and let him down? I mean... Kyle Busch could have said no.
It was just for JD.
I think
Kyle,
we can all agree.
people have their opinions. I didn't like Kyle Busch for the longest time. He's still not necessarily my favorite driver to see out leading a race. But I don't think he's just a bad person outright. And I think he had the entire the entire Joe Gibbs organization had enough respect for J.D. Gibbs. I was getting my words tangled up there. Even any driver, even when you have that temptation and that drive to try to finally go out and win a 500, you put the team first, because you know how special of a moment that it truly is. Especially remembering somebody that made such a great impact on the sport. I'm sure made a great impact personally on everybody within Joe Gibbs Racing. And basically a guy who really gave a lot of people a chance for the lucky break that they needed to even enter NASCAR in general. So I think that kind of proved to me, at least, that somewhere deep down inside, Kyle Busch is a softie.
And that's hard, too, because it's the 500. And, yeah, if I was in that position, I'd be like, I want the win. And, I mean, you got to keep in mind, too, Kyle Busch still could have won, if you want to add
Yeah, what number 500 was that for him?
I think it was his 14th or 15th.
Well, according to the Dale clock, he's still got 6 more tries.
Yeah. Matt, you want to add on to any of that? Your opinions?
Well, I guess you can call me a JGR fanboy, so... But
yeah, you obviously celebrated it.
Yeah,
I did not. I ran upstairs.
I enjoyed it. I was very happy. I had that feeling when when they first got 1, 2, 3, Hamlin, Busch, and Jones, I thought the race was over. Like one of the three are gonna win the race. Like we've seen it so many times where teammates get up in front and race is over.
I mean, you saw that.
We've seen Penske do that. Well, last fall at Talladega, that was an exception. That was just OP. That was just overpowered. Okay.
Chapter, yeah.
That was some OP stuff. That was unreal. But like we've seen like Penske get like 1, 2, 3 races. It's over. Nothing's happening. And I just had that feeling that's what was going to happen. And I think it was more just Kyle didn't want Joey to win.
And we saw it in the Xfinity race. You know, even though they waited to the last lap, Justin Allgaier did not let Michael Annett, or did not let anyone past him or Michael Annett on the final lap. And yeah, it's just a matter of teamwork at that point. And it's the same mentality that the Fords continue to say. They say, as long as we get a blue oval in victory lane, we're happy. And that is no different than what we saw in the 500. As long as a Toyota went to victory lane, those Toyota guys would be happy. You know, maybe with the exception of Kyle Busch, but you know, deep down inside,
I mean, did it have to be Dennis the Menace?
Oh,
I feel it's most fitting.
You know, hey, FedEx has been delivering on Sundays for a while, and you know, if you're going to deliver on Sunday, you might as well go out with a bang. So
I was hopeful. I mean, Napa's open every day.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen. We got involved in too many wrecks.
And then I just got the Smithfield curse and thought Almirola was going to break his back. So, but anyways, I guess
the best of them.
Yeah. I guess the 500 is obviously really eventful. I feel like we could talk about this for like 50 more of these podcasts and get as many people as we can just to talk about this one race, because so much happened. So many incredible things happened, so many news stories. And so it leads us try to sum this up, if we can all give our opinions on this. And I know, Matt, you have an interesting about like TV ratings we'll talk about, but was the 2019 Daytona 500 the best 500 in modern Gen 6 era? And go ahead and tell us those stats about the TV ratings.
It earned so this year's Daytona 500 earned a 5.5 overnight rating, which is 8% higher than the 5.1 rating it got last year.
That's big. I mean,
great. This is like the first. This is like the first race that has gone up in ratings, and I don't know why. Maybe it's a new package. Maybe they did some better marketing. I don't really know. Being a better race,
I don't know. I was happy to see the stands absolutely packed yesterday, though. That made me very happy. Yeah. No, but and like they kept saying during the broadcast too, nobody was leaving early. They all stayed to the bitter end. And I thought that it was great.
And I think it was a perfect Daytona 500. You know, you went from a weekend where so many people hated on the lack of side-by-side racing. You know, you had people trash the package. You had people trash the drivers. You had some people trash the track. And we saw everything opposite than that with this 500. We saw so many different storylines. You had like the young guns like Byron and Bowman up there leading. Obviously Byron on the pole. You had guys like Benedetto up there. You got all these stories, all this action. And then you had the big wrecks. Obviously, like, that's sadly what NASCAR promotes as the big wrecks, but they came so late. I didn't expect that at all. And then when the wrecks started happening, they happened. And then, again, you had the crazy story of JGR at the end. You had the crazy story of cars, you know, underdogs finishing within the top 10. Cars somehow managing to finish the race with so much damage. And I think just all in all, it was an incredible 500. But, yeah, the promotion beforehand, I don't know. And I'd be surprised if TV ratings go up after this 500 weekend. I'd be surprised if we have more followers going into the regular season here after Daytona, because, I mean, it was, I don't know, it was so crazy. Yeah, whatever they did promoting it beforehand, and then what we saw in the 500, you know, by no means, you know, we've gotten some popularity And we're sitting here thinking, like, you know, to go back to our original question, was it the best 500 in modern Gen 6 era? I mean, the only other Gen 6 era race I can think of was maybe good was, off of my mind, was the 2016 one where, you know, also Denny Hamlin won, but it was off by a really close margin. I can't see... I feel like the worst had to have been Kurt Busch's win in 2017 and Austin Dillon's in 2018.
I thought Austin Dillon's was the worst by far, but I found 2017 really interesting because it was literally just who's going to run out of gas because it could happen any second.
Yeah.
I think 2013 is the worst of the Gen 6, but
that was the first Gen 6 race too.
But
it's the first time the package has been out there. Yeah.
I think 2019 was the best.
It doesn't matter if it's the first race on the package. The race was garbage.
Yeah, nonetheless.
Yeah, the fact is a fact. I think the 2019 was the best, in my opinion. 2018, I think, was definitely the worst because that finish was just absolute garbage last year, regardless of who was wrecking who.
You had wrecks
at the end of that race. That was just terrible.
All race long too. It started early.
Yeah.
And when the wrecks came, they came big, and then it was, what's the point of even watching if your favorite driver isn't there?
Yeah, but thinking about promotional stuff, I'm pretty sure I was looking on Twitter this afternoon, and I think NASCAR did a lot of social media promotion through Barstool Sports, and then had the president. He was there at the race, and he was tweeting a lot of things, and people seemed to be pretty happy that he was there. People were interested because he was there. I guess he really enjoyed it and said that he would be tuning into more races, so that was good on the promotional side of getting more people that just follow sports in general possibly kind of looking into NASCAR. But you mentioning the underdogs briefly there, I would like to give Ross Chastain a round of applause for finishing in the top 10 in a premium motorsports car because
it doesn't matter what the circumstances are.
I don't even, how do you explain that? Even if there was a 39 car wreck, I still wouldn't expect the premium motorsports car to finish in the top 10, no matter who was driving, even if it was the one. Yeah. So I think that was pretty awesome. Especially with the Benedetto leading the most laps.
Oh, I know.
There's different factors. It made it a great race.
Yeah, it's just the amount of stories he had out of the 500. I think David Land definitely covered it. I saw it before we started this podcast. He did upload a video talking about what's the show called again? Barstool Sports, I think. Barstool Sports, if I can pronounce it in English correctly. It's just reaching out. It's funny because even David Land talks about Daytona Day. What did Daytona Day do, and what did it promote? I honestly at first didn't see anything wrong with Daytona Day other than it was just really cringy. But obviously they've stepped away from that, and NASCAR's really looked at, all right, the 500 is a prestigious race. It's just like any other motorsports event, kind of like, Monaco GP and stuff like that. 500 has its own taste. It's unique in its, own way. And I think promoting it that way definitely caught a lot of either old fans to maybe start watching again, or new fans, and then the current fans to really get energized about it and hyped for it. That took us 35 minutes, maybe 40 minutes to really cover the 500. But before we get to...
I want to say one quick thing about the 500.
Oh, no.
I thought they were being a little bit brave when they said that the Daytona 500 was the most prestigious trophy in all of racing.
Yeah.
I thought they were being a little bit brave when they said that, because I think that Le Mans, Monaco, and Indy would all like a word.
I agree with that too, because especially when you
I just thought it was kind of funny.
Yeah, when you look at the 500 having wrecks as well, I don't consider it a very prestigious event.
Only 3 cars weren't in a wreck.
Yeah, I guess there's some prestige in that maybe. I don't know. We'll continue to call it one of the most prestigious events until, everyone else comes knocking on NASCAR's door, but...
I think it's definitely top 5, but I don't think it's number 1.
It's up there, either. Yeah, it's up there. It's close enough to call it the Super Bowl of NASCAR. You usually get injured people in football, and, you get some pretty injured cars at Daytona. Well, before we transition to our Atlanta preview and talking about a little bit more other things, since we are running out of time here on this podcast. We're going to go into I have a name for it. We'll see if the name sticks. It is our pit stop segment, where we've increased it to 30 seconds of thoughts. Each one of us is going to give our thoughts on, well, just one bullet point today, but some good consideration. The question is, was the Daytona 500 the perfect send-off for J.D. Gibbs, Sam Bass, who has created a lot of different paint schemes and contributed a lot to NASCAR, including creating Jeff Gordon's paint scheme, and David Hoots, who called his final Daytona 500, or final race in general, as the sporting director, whatever you call it, the main race official in NASCAR. So, Matt, we'll start off with you. You got 30 seconds. Question again: how's the Daytona 500? Was the Daytona 500 the perfect send-off for J.D. Gibbs, Sam Bass, and David Hoots? Take it away.
I have an actual timer this week.
Oh, good.
I think it was the perfect send-off for J.D. Gibbs, just because Joe Gibbs 1, 2, 3, and the number 11 won, which was his number. For Sam Bass, I think Byron would have had a win for that, and I don't know what would be the perfect send-off for David Hoots. I'll just leave that inconclusive.
All right, Andrew. How about you? See, he did under 30 seconds, so you got to top that.
Yeah, there it was.
Yep, there it is. All right.
All right.
Your 30 seconds is done.
26 seconds. All right, here we go. All right. Perfect send-off for J.D. Gibbs. I think 100% exactly what Karma said. His team, his number, just the connections that he made within the sport. I think he just really touched a lot of people, and I think that it was a great race that ended in a good victory for them. For Sam Bass, I think William Byron sitting on the pole and then leading the second most amount of laps in the 24 car that he designed was a great send-off. I just think David Hughes, as long as he served in the sport, I think that having a race as great as the 500 was great for him as his last race in the booth. Oh, I got that one perfectly.
Right.
Look at that.
Timer. Well, I guess it's better get a head start on here. Send off for J.D. Gibbs. Yeah, it was good with the 11, seeing the 11 win. Good race for Toyota. Dominance, I would say, compared to like Ford's at Super Speedway. So good send off for them. Sam Bass, Byron was on the pole. I think that was a perfect send-off. Having Byron running a Jeff Gordon scheme, that Sam Bass created was really good. And David Hoots got the put it out multiple times at the end of the 500. So I think it was a very perfect send-off for David Hoots. And that will be it from, that was good. That would be it for our pit stop segment here in the Bump and Run podcast. Let's talk about Atlanta, because obviously Atlanta is going to be running the lower horsepower package, and obviously the new aerodynamic package. We all have imprinted in our minds what the Vegas test looked like. So now let's try to translate that to Atlanta, where we're going to see a total of 40 cars and a completely different track surface. Well, Matt, we've started with you for most of this. Andrew, we'll start with your thoughts. What do you think we're going to see at Atlanta?
I'm glad you mentioned that track surface, because that was going to be the first thing I mentioned. I don't know how to approach this, because obviously Atlanta's track surface is very rough, it's very slippery, it's very inconsistent, I think. I think you have to either run right down on that white line close to the apron, or you're going to have to be up against the wall. People can run in the middle, but I think that either rim riding it or putting it on the bottom, putting it down there like Kevin Harvick always does, is going to be the fastest way around. But I don't know how that's going to change because of this downforce package. Because the less power, yeah, that's a factor. But you look at Vegas, they were having to let off and basically I'll say drive the cars again the longer they went on older tires. I think it's going to be a bigger factor at Atlanta. But I don't know how much that fall off is going to be compared to years past, because we've used similar levels of downforce before, but then when you do combine it with the slower speeds because of the lower amount of engine power, I'm just hoping that we can get some long green flag runs, let the tires fall off real good, and then kind of see. This is, I think, going to be a good judge for us to kind of transition into this new package, because it's gonna be an interesting track surface with a lot of wear on the tires that could kind of create more interesting racing to kind of help people ease into the new package. But I don't know how much different the racing is really going to be. You know, if it's a pack race the entire time, or at least for the first 10 or 15 laps of a run, this race could be pretty crazy.
I don't think this is going to be a pack race at all. I think the track surface is too old. Like, even like last year, late in runs, you would get under 130 miles per hour.
That's slow.
Which is, yeah, that's really, really slow. So they're going to be letting off. So I think it's going to play somewhat similar to what it's been. But I don't know. I still think Harvick's going to dominate this race and win it. I have no reason to say otherwise.
So you can never count him out at that track.
I just think he's too good.
Look at Charlotte. The All-Star race was not the same package, but it's similar. He still pulled away. He still did really good with that.
I think he just has so much more discipline than some of the other drivers.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't care if you pull away, because he's not like necessarily trying.
You want
Atlanta.
to,
but he doesn't like he just rides along. But he's like, yeah, I'll be faster than you in 15 laps. Don't worry.
Mm-hmm. You want to pull away. It doesn't matter who you are. Like, it doesn't matter what the fans say if it's boring. Like, if you're in the lead, you want to get away from everyone else so you have a comfortable lead and have a good chance at winning or getting stage points.
Harvick takes it the complete opposite direction, but I think Vegas will be a better indicator of what this package is going to be like. And my last point is, these cars are going to be so much slower. Do you realize how long this race is going to be?
Yeah, and I was going to bring that up too. It's going to, I can't imagine them running in Atlanta without having to turn the lights on because it's going to be pitch black. Like that, I think it's a late start time too. It's also at just like the 500s around like 2. Well, no,
it's like 2. It's like 2:30. I think.
Don't quote us on that. Go to NASCAR.com. But
if they have faster cornering speeds, though, I wonder if it'll start to equal out.
No.
Yeah, but when
your max speed is 165.
It's just a lot more downforce.
I agree with both because I can't imagine the track surface and this package working together. I can see them have more grip. I can see, even though the track surface is bad, I can see them have a little bit more grip, but I don't think it's gonna. If they still have to go slow, it doesn't matter how much downforce you have on a car. If you're still going slow, you're gonna have handling issues. You're gonna be even slower. You're gonna still try to tighten up your car, and it's kind of like using Formula One theory. The aero parts on a Formula One car to aid in downforce is not going to work unless you're going fast. If you're going slow, then it's just drag, and it's just not helping you at all. And I feel like that's what's going to happen with this package. It's just, yes, it could help with handling, but because of the track surface, it's going to slow them down, and it's just going to make the racing even slower. So I think the problem I have is we're gonna see the big one in Atlanta. I'm really going far on this. Let's look at the All-Star race. We had that turn 3 incident with Ricky Stenhouse going 3 wide with Truex, and it created a huge wreck. Okay, let's look at Atlanta. It's a wide track, and if this package does, if we're wrong about the racing not being close, if it does become close, this track again is still slick. And I can see, and it's rough, it's bumpy, and if one mistake happens, I can see the big one going off. It'll be like that one they had a few years back with Biffle and whatnot. I definitely think we'll see the big one at Atlanta because of how close these cars are with a horrible track surface. That's only if there is a lot of pack racing and the field doesn't get spread out. So
I just don't see what the tire wear. pack racing. I just think
Yeah.
we're just going to see a really slow Atlanta race.
And I can't, because I can't imagine Goodyear bringing a hard tire. That means they're just going to slip more. So obviously they're going to bring a softer tire, which is going to wear more, and it's going to have grip to start with. But yeah, it's just going to fade off. So that's all we can really give with the Atlanta preview, because we don't know. This is the first time we've seen this package. Xfinity has kind of run a similar package, but the only track that they've done it at is Indianapolis, so you can't really compare that. Obviously, you can't really compare the test from Las Vegas to Atlanta, so, anything can happen. I feel like these three were all three, reasonable options that could happen. It's just a matter of which one's gonna happen. Whether or not we're grouped up, whether or not we're spread apart, whether or not, it's going to be faster, whether or not. I think we can all agree it's going to take longer, though. With less horsepower and with them sliding around, I think it'll be ending around 6-7 o'clock for sure at night.
The Atlanta race last year took 3.5 hours.
So I can see them go maybe 4.5. Maybe. I don't know.
There was only 5 cautions last year.
Yeah. And then it's also, this isn't on here too, what team, we mentioned Kevin Harvick, what teams are going to see get an advantage from this package? Are we still going to see Kevin Harvick go out and dominate? Are we going to see underfunded teams go out and battle for the lead?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm more waiting for Vegas than to see what this package offers than Atlanta. I have the same concerns for Atlanta as I do at Auto Club.
Yeah, because Auto Club's kind of like it. Old track surface, bumpy track surface, really fast straightaways and really slow corners. Yeah, you could be right. I think we can, and we can probably go out and say whatever we see at Atlanta, we may see that at Auto Club. That'd probably be a good comparison. We'll just have to see. Andrew, you have anything else before we move on?
Nope.
All right. Well, that ends the Atlanta preview. Before we end the Bump and Run podcast, episode 2 of this series, I was watching an interview that Kyle Petty did with Mike Helton. And I don't know the exact quotes, and I should have done my research and rewatched it and actually quoted him word for word. But Mike Helton said something along the lines of, the changes we made back then in NASCAR won't help change our modern problems. And I feel like this is a good comment talking about the Gen 7 car. Within my friend group and within people I see on the internet, people go on and talk about, the Gen 7 car will be better if we take an older NASCAR design and implement it on the cars. While in theory it might sound good, will it actually work? And I'm going to start this off because this is my thing. This is what I'm adding to this podcast and my thoughts. It's definitely a no for me. You have to keep up with technology. You have to keep up with the way things are going. Obviously, Formula One's kind of taken this path where they've gone to this V6 hybrid era, and they're changing how the cars are built and made and how they run and how they work. And you can kind of see the same with other motorsports as well. And they're all moving in a forward direction. NASCAR here they're getting there. And I think with one thing, there's a lot of news with the Gen 7 car having independent rear suspension. We can talk about that, if you're a big car enthusiast. Obviously, with independent rear suspension, you might have a little bit more control with balance of the car and whatnot. So that's the theory with independent rear suspension. We're not going to talk about that today, whether or not that may be good or bad. I have my thoughts and opinions about that. I'm sure everyone else does. We'll bring that up in another episode to discuss. But in general, though, this also goes along with points as well, the point system. Can we bring back things that happened in the past with NASCAR and implement that into modern NASCAR? Will that change anything? I want to see what your guys' thoughts are, because like I said, I haven't really talked to many people about this, but in general, just anything in NASCAR, whether it be the cars or the rule system, the points, can we really truly bring things back from the past and implement that into today's NASCAR and make it better, or is it just not possible? We have to continue changing.
Mike Helton is 100% right on this. The sport's a lot different. The people working on these cars are engineers. You all know what engineers do? They always try to find ways to go faster. Yeah. They will find loopholes. If you think that going back to an old style of car is going to help, it might help for half a season if you're lucky. Those engineers will find a way to get like whatever they want back.
They're always trying to find something new and better.
And then Nate, I believe it was Nate Ryan who talked to Roger Penske about Gen 7. And Roger Penske said, you should not think of Gen 7 as just the Gen 7 car. You should think of Gen 7 as like a new revolution in NASCAR. The car is being designed for when we race, where we race. Roger Penske, I quote, "We're going to more short tracks."
That's big. I mean, that's commitment.
It almost like
certainty.
And how long we race too. That was another thing he said. So, with that being said, I already think shorter races. That almost confirms Iowa is going to be on the schedule in 2021.
Rockingham, obviously. Rockingham's being remade.
I don't think Rockingham. I don't know if Rockingham will. But Iowa is that low-hanging fruit for. Iowa's the low-hanging fruit for a new short track to be added. It's like that's just too obvious.
There's also Gateway. Gateway said they're willing to try NASCAR's midweek race idea. Like that's how far they're willing to go.
I also think it's like 20. We can do a whole episode on 2021 just because.
Yeah.
Gen 7, new schedule. What Roger Penske said. You can do a whole episode on what Roger Penske just said in that little statement because it entails so much.
We'll definitely
10 words.
Do that. We should do like an off week. When NASCAR is an off week, we just need to do 2021 podcasts and just gather as much as we can.
Like when he said that, my head was racing with ideas.
Yeah, for sure. I've never heard that too, so you're also bringing stuff new up. Again, we are getting close to the end of this podcast. Andrew, your thoughts on changes?
I think we're at a technological point in racing that we are past being able to just round off the fenders, round off the bumpers, take all the downforce and the splitter away, and just tell them to go drive these jalopy pieces of crud like they had to do in the 60s and 70s and part of the 80s. Like, the engineering, the technology, the amount of work that is put into these cars for high horsepower. I once again, I'm going to run back to the 2014 package. I think that's where Gen 6 racing was at its best. I think that's maybe, in my opinion, where NASCAR was at one of its best seasons. You get to the point in the future, Gen 7 cars is a huge possibility here, even though obviously they're going to have to make a few changes. And maybe change how dirty air affects cars if they're going to stick with this high downforce. But, it's just high horsepower, high downforce, badass, fast racing is what the future is going to have to be if NASCAR wants people and fans to get back into the sport. I think they have good intentions with this package, and I think that on certain tracks at least it's going to be successful. Obviously the short tracks are always going to be successful, but I think that you have to take advantage of the modern technologies that we have and use it to make the fastest, most competitive and entertaining race possible without making it too artificial. But I don't think, like what some people are just saying, is making lower profile tires, rounding off the bumpers, and making it basically look completely like a street car again. That's what everybody wants. That's not what everybody wants, and that's not practical for the amount of engineering that it's put into these race cars.
One quick thing. I'm pretty confident in saying that the splitter is going to be gone on Gen 7.
Yeah, we all talk about the splitter. Yeah, because, there's things, obviously, what's on the cars now, in theory is to optimize oval racing. You have the skew of the cars, which is to optimize downforce at ovals. The splitter is obviously supposed to aid in some sort of handling thing. Obviously, in the new Gen 6, we've had it for a while, but it's the COT body for safety. But, it's like, yeah, what do we really, implement and change? People talk about, all the racing's this, whether it be bad or good and whatnot. But, if we're going to make it better in the eyes of what the NASCAR as a business sees it as and what NASCAR as the community sees it as, you have to make a huge change. And I don't think you can go back and, look back and see what we did and try to incorporate it in today's world. You have to look into something different. You have to go somewhere else. Again, independent rear suspension. It's like a new technology. I mean, it's been around, but it's like a new technology for especially a lot of muscle car companies. The Mustang is the most recent muscle car to have this. The Camaro, and again, the street versions, the Camaro has an independent rear suspension for a while. Mustang, I think got it at the start of 2016 or something. It's new advances. You have to incorporate new stuff and create things and be creative in order to get the product that you want. Looking back in time and saying we need to bring this back or we need to change this isn't going to help. It may, the splitter in one case is one, but it may not help everything.
Engineering has really changed racing in all series, and I think an issue is that no matter what they do, it's going to be aero-dependent because engineers will make it aero-dependent.
Mm-hmm. And you look at Formula 1 and that's what it is, it's a lot about aero stuff, and that's what motorsports is. It's going fast, it's about speeds, and yeah, you're definitely going to take a lot of this stuff into consideration. But I like the thoughts, and I like the feedback for that. Obviously, give a quick shout out. I know NASCAR Nixon out there watches us, or at least has seen episode 1. I don't know if he's going to continue watching the series, but there's people noticing us, so I appreciate all the people watching. But let us down in the comments what you think about everything we talked about in this podcast, and I want to hear people talk about Mike Helton's comments and whether or not things in the past that NASCAR did probably won't help our modern problems, and what people think is the perfect Gen 7 car. I think we will. Well, I'll take you guys' word up on that. We'll do a 2021 podcast special when NASCAR goes on an off week, especially for the Cup Series, and we'll definitely research and gather information for that. But Matt and Andrew, thank you guys for joining me here on episode 2 of the Bump and Run podcast, and we will see you guys next week as we review Atlanta and talk more about NASCAR's biggest topics. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Have to end them laugh.
Well, there you have it.